Vikas. Thanks a lot for dropping by.
Thanks.
And I know a lot of these questions that I would be asking, you would be thinking, are you being an account manager? You should be knowing this. But just for the audience here, we would definitely want to understand, since now you're seeing in the past few years, recruitment itself has seen a major shift, and because of the dynamic market and the operations that we are getting into, what do you think? What are the major challenges you or your team at HCL saw in the complete talent acquisition process? Maybe if you can throw some light on that,
Sure.
we'd love to understand that.
So, before I talk about it, I think it's important to understand, who we are and what we do. While most of you know what HCL Technologies is, we have 12% CAGR for last 5 years, with very healthy amount of profitability, and our per employee revenue has grown up 40% in last 5 years. So if you compare with us with any Indian IDCs, the Indian outsourcing IT services companies, we perhaps have the best per employee revenue. If you compare all our competitors, they'll be around 3 lakh, 4 lakh people. We are still 1,20,000 people, and that's a conscious choice we have made. Which means that all what you've heard Rajiv spoke and the Alok spoke about. I think we've been hearing all of this for last 3-4 years or 5 years, I may say, and there was so much debate around we need to do automation in HR. We need to automate our processes. We need to get cloud HRMS products, cloud-based products, SaaS-based products to automate our different sub-processes and processes. I think in HCL we were the early adopter of technology in HR, and what we realized is after a point, automation is a BAU, right? You don't have a choice; you need to do it, right? But the next step is productivity. So the debate has shifted from automating it to how do we become more productive? Whether it's a talent acquisition, whether it's human resources, and we started experimenting with AI, I think 3-4 years back, and we started with recruiting because for services company, recruiting is a backbone, and it drives your revenue. Every person you hire is a potential revenue, and the problems are obviously we are in same market, so therefore problems are not going to be different. Problem was speed of hire, quality of hire. The hiring manager burnout, because HCL hire typically around 20 to 25,000 people a year, which means that if you need to hire that many people, you need to evaluate 3x, 4x, 5x people. And there is going to be burnout for recruiter, there is going to be burnout for hiring manager. So we said, okay, how do we leverage technology to solve some of these problems? But one of the things which we said is we are not only going to solve for recruiter and candidate. Typically, if you talk about any solution in market, either they are recruiter focused or they are candidate focused. We said we need to bring in third stakeholder of this entire talent supply chain, who is a hiring manager. Now, if there is a technology available where I can decide to buy anything with the click of a button, why not hiring manager can hire a talent or decide on a talent? And being a technology company, it was quite ironical that most of our processes were manual, and hiring manager will raise a demand, then he's on the mercy of somebody to get him a resume. Why? If there is a technology which can solve that problem for him, why shouldn't we attempt it? So from that context, we started thinking about, and we broke our entire recruiting process in different sub processes. So one is about demand, then screening, and then assessment, and then various other downstream processes. So we said, when you raise a demand in technology company, the first preference is in internal sourcing. Right? Typically, each of your SBU, BUs, or different businesses will have some sort of bench. People who are not having a job, or they are in transition, one project end and they're waiting for another opportunity to come. So that is the database you mine first before you decide to go and hire someone. We said that, okay, let's empower our hiring manager with the technology layer, and the moment he raises a demand, before even demand is getting approved, and we leverage same NLP and semantic analysis, etc., by which he gets to see what is the resume which is available in-house, in the bench, who's meeting his demand, and he can shortlist. It's like in Uber, right? I go, I say, I want a cab. You see what are the cabs nearby, and then you decide to, one of the drivers says, yes, I'm interested. Likewise, we said, every time you have a demand, you create a demand in the tool, and the tool will immediately pop up all the supply which is matching to that particular demand. And then hiring manager he can shortlist those resumes. Obviously, he can't action it unless the demand is approved, because there are other parameters goes into whether the demand is going to be approved, budget, pyramid, ratio, etc. So once the demand is approved and we shortlist, then you can decide to evaluate him, shortlist him, select him, reject him, and block him. If the tool tells you that you don't have any internal supply available, then hiring manager also was empowered to see external supply, the supply from the market. Now, the market supply was obviously, it was residing in our application tracking system, right, where we source from vendor, Naukri, LinkedIn, Monster, and so many other sources. All the resume which are my existing repository, tool goes there, does the search and match, pop-ups the resume to hiring manager to say, look, internally nobody is available, but these are the external supply which perhaps you can take and run with it. So that problem we solved it. But I think the other issue which we got into is that if you need to hire 25,000 people, as I said, I need to process 3 lakh, 4 lakh resume, which means that I can't do one-on-one interviews. We do a lot of walk-in events, right? And most of you must be doing it. We invite 100 people on a particular Saturday, then we tell them to go through test, he goes through test, etc. And while you end up hiring, you piss off a lot of people, because you invite somebody 9 a.m. in the morning, the guy waits for 4 hours, then his turn comes, then he takes an interview, he walks out of a building at 6 p.m. If he's rejected, he'll go and tell 10 people. And as Rajiv was mentioning today, they can go and post on Glassdoor and Facebook and complaint board and whatnot to say that the company sucks, the process sucks, etc. And that's where we started thinking that can we have a solution like what they spoke, to say that can I do a remote assessment? Why do I need to invite everybody in premise to go to ask him to go through an assessment? Can he take the assessment from wherever he is, as per his convenience? And once he clears the threshold, then can I do a virtual assessment again through a video assessment platform, right? And at the same time, every Saturday we used to invite a panel also to say, look, I'm doing a drive, I'm inviting 100 people, you need people in your project, you have to come and give us 8 hours and evaluate 20 people. And if he's evaluating 20 people for one particular job or role, he need to ask typically all those questions to 20 people for 8 hours. And panel was also getting burned out. After 2 drives, he'll say, no, I'm not going to come, you should find somebody else. And then you start compromising. Somebody is not good enough to take an interview, still invite him because you have a pressure of fulfilling the job. So it was brewing a perfect storm, right? And that's where we said, okay, screening we have sorted, the upstream process is sorted. For downstream assessment, etc., we need to have a platform which can enable us to do this remotely, which will obviously create a great candidate experience. As you said, you will have a barcode, you scan from your mobile, you fill 5 questions. Either if you have a test, you can immediately start giving the test. If you have a video assessment, somebody will ask a question, you can give your response through video. So that's where the need started, right? And that's where we started looking some of the solutions in market. We stumbled upon Ayush, Rajiv, and Talview, and we had similar kind of sessions earlier. And we did proper evaluation for 3-4 months. So Talview, I think we are using it for 2 years now. For one of our account in US, for one of our customer in US, we are using Talview. Almost 1.5 years we used it only for that account. And when the hiring manager came back and said, yes, it is solving my problem, I can evaluate multiple people simultaneously without putting much effort. I upload my question for 5 minutes and 10 minutes, and then I send it to 100 people, they respond, and as per my convenience, I go through all the responses, and then I decide whom to shortlist, whom to reject. So we did all those POCs, etc., and then we decided to go ahead with you guys. So that was on why we chose Talview. But I think one of the other thing which is, if you ask me what is the talent acquisition problem, I think the problem is still, despite all the technology which we have and so much innovation and disruption we are talking about, I think we still have so many jobs to fill, and there are so many candidates who are not finding the job, right? So and the gap is only getting wider, despite all what is there in the place. I think it is also because there are certain things which is still not changed. Resume, for example, for 500 year resume as a concept is 400-year old, right? It is still there, and I don't know how much it will sustain despite all what is happening, because resume doesn't tell you a lot of things about candidate. It just tells you about his past. It doesn't tell you about his future possibilities. And today, when the jobs are hybrid, where you're not hiring him for a particular job, because it's not going to be static. You hire him for that job, the role will change, and the role is going to be hybrid. He needs to do multiple things. You expect multiple things to be done by one individual, and therefore you need to assess him. You need to, on many aspects, what is his learnability, what is his ability to collaborate. Can you judge his grit by his resume? You can't, right? And therefore, I think the challenge is still there, and there are, I think, the bigger players like Google, etc., are still trying to solve at some level, and I think the data has its power. The companies are gathering all of our data, including candidate data, from various platforms, Insta, Facebook, all the searches we do, all the shopping we do, and therefore some of these behavioral aspects will come into the play. But I think we're still far away. I hope what Rajiv said comes true. By 2020 or 2015, we have some of those solutions. But I still believe, I think there are a lot to be solved within recruiting. But the good point is that it's a $200 billion marketplace. There are so many players coming up, and at least in India, every month, in my center of excellence role, I end up meeting 5-6 people who are doing startup. They're trying to solve another problem within recruiting. I think it's a great sign, and at some point in future, we might solve some of those problems. But I still believe, I think for candidate, it is still complex. It is laborious for him to find the right job for him, because it is the way we post our job descriptions, right? As you said, one designation, if you go and search, 1,000 companies are putting that particular job. There are 1,000 designations, and it's very difficult for him to find the right job. That is one. Second, job is not only about that role. The belief system. What kind of company do I want to work in? What is my belief system? Does it match with the company's belief system? None of the job descriptions talk about that. It only talks about, look, I'm looking for this, and then there are 150 points which a candidate should have, which I want to hire. So I think we are in that journey somewhere. I hope we'll reach there. But in our context, we are solving, at least in recruiting, we are pretty gung-ho about how we solve it from a hiring manager's perspective, to say it should be like Uberization of recruiting. If I need to hire somebody, it should be on the tap. I should be able to see internal supply, external supply. I should be able to shortlist. After that, we will leverage the platform like this, like Talview, where I can do a remote assessment. I don't have to necessarily go and meet the person and wait for him to confirm his availability, panel availability, candidate availability. It should be as per their convenience. I can decide, I can do a virtual assessment of 50 people. Candidate can take my assessment as and when we want, and as and when they'll clear the threshold, we'll take it to the next steps.
Great. Yeah. I have a quick follow-up question, Vikas, on this. So, say you have been evaluating multiple tools in the market today. What are those success matrix, or what are those parameters that you look at when you evaluate these tools? And how do you actually come to a conclusion, or say how did Talview come into the picture, and what were those parameters and success matrix that you kind of evaluated?
Sure, I think it's a very difficult question, because what will happen is when you evaluate a product at an idea level, at a solution level, most of them will look to, okay, everybody is solving the problem. Search and match, for example, using NLP and AI and semantic analysis to do an auto search and match. If you Google it, you'll find at least 20, 30 players who are trying to solve this problem as of now. At least 10, 15 of them. If you go to tech HRs and SHRMs of the world, you'll find them lined up, and everybody is solving the same problem. Then similarly for video assessment, Talview is one. There are so many other tools as well. How do you decide which one is going to solve your problem? I can tell you from our experience in HCL Technologies, we put a lot of emphasis on their ability to execute, their ability to project management, their ability to manage our size, scale, and complexity. I think that's where, because look, at an idea level, everybody is solving same problem. But if you can't, if you can't execute it at at the complexity of, for example, HCL technology has many businesses, many geos, 500, 600 recruiters, 20, 30,000 hiring managers. So if you can't solve it at scale, your idea might be very right, but if you can't execute, it's not going to work. So that is one of the important things which we take, because if you talk about at a matrix level, we are very clear. So the success matrix for a particular tool, for example, let's say Talview, it has to condense my lead time to hire. That's the biggest success matrix. If I'm taking, let's say, 15 days or 20 days to complete my assessment from one assessment or two assessments, can I squeeze it to 7 days? Because today I'm waiting for candidate to come to my office or panel be available before I start my assessment. Now I have a tool. It can be anywhere, anytime, on the go, and therefore the success matrix for assessment is going to be how do I reduce my lead time, so that those 52 days fulfillment lead time should become 30 days or 40 days, because if the guy comes early, you will start billing him early and you will earn more revenue. So from the recruiting context, that is the biggest matrix. But obviously there are other parameters. You said the candidate experience, for example. Recruiter ability to fulfill more, recruiter ability to have less burnout, free the bandwidth of hiring manager, because recruiting is not his primary job. His primary job is to deliver a project or develop a software, right? So, but today if you look at, in any services company you'll go, project manager and beyond, people are, their 40% time is just fulfillment, because that's the revenue. So whether it is a DU head or SDU head or people below, they are just getting into these calls asking update to say, oh, how many resumes have you given? Has this guy cleared technical interview? Is he accepting the offer? Is he joining? Is he not joining? Those are the kind of updates which all of us give every day in, day out. How will I leverage technology to free his bandwidth so that he can do more sell, so that he can do more customer engagement, for us to get us more business from the existing or the new customers. So those are some of the metrics which we look at.
Also, you spoke about like Uberization of the hiring process. Can you also throw some light on how do you think, we already spoke about what our focus is over the next few years, but how do you feel recruitment supply chain or recruitment process as a whole is going to change in the next few years, say coming 2 or 3 years down the line? What major shifts do you see in place?
I think one of the in my view, one of the biggest shift is all what we're trying to do. We are assuming that candidate is willing to come and work for you, right? That problem technology is not solving. That problem you have to solve. You have so many tools and so many other automation things, but ultimately candidate has to decide whether he wants to work for you. And that job, the persuasion job, the selling job, the convincing the candidate that you are perhaps the best employer for him for that particular job, is still to be done by human. So therefore recruiter job is definitely changing, but I think the human aspects will still remain, and that technology can't solve for you. So if you ask me, in terms of what is going to happen in future, I think these technologies will come. We will still do a lot of things, but your ability to attract, your ability to create affinity from that candidate, that he chooses you, because I still believe that the war of talent, the word is there since I started recruiting back in 2005, 2006. Since then I'm hearing, the war of talent, and the phrase has re-emerged in last 3-4 years. It will still continue, but talent is the one who decides. You doesn't decide. So candidate is the one who's going to decide whether he's going to work for A company, B company, C company, and therefore amidst all this technology, what we're trying to do, we need to still ensure that we comes across as human, we comes across a company which cares for their employees, who does good for society, have a great business but do good for society. So those are the things which in recruiting will still remain. It's not going to change, but yeah, technology will definitely disrupt hiring managers' role and recruiters' role.
Great. Thank you, Vikas. Any advice for the delegates today here? I hope we have everyone here from the HR team, or they are associated with the HR some or the other way. Any advice that you would want to convey to them?
I think the advice is, we all know the problem is getting painted in every forum, right, wherever we go, and we more often than not we hear what is wrong with HR and what is wrong in talent acquisition. I think it's a great opportunity for us to solve it. Leverage technology, there is no two ways about it. I think anybody who still believes that AI is a fad or machine learning is just good to talk about, I think you need to change your mindset. You should jump the bandwagon. You may not be able to solve all, but I think it's a journey. And if you have not started the journey, you should start it now. Otherwise, in another 1 or 2 years, you will feel left out, and it will be very difficult to catch up. So that's my advice. I think in our journey, I'm not saying that we have achieved everything we set out for, but we are in the journey somewhere, and the idea is to fail fast, right? So in some of the processes where we started this, we realized that it's not working out, and we again, regroup and re-strategize and, try and apply it differently. So I think that's the secret sauce. There's nothing that, and I talk to people in Capgemini, Cogni, TCS, Infosys, because I have my colleagues and friends there, and everybody is trying to do that. Everybody is trying to use AI on ML somewhere or other in recruiting process to condense the lead time of hire. Because as I said, there are so many jobs which are not getting fulfilled. There are so many candidates who are still not getting job. So the idea is to solve that problem with, with the amalgamation of human effort and the technology what you're getting. So when you bring this together, then perhaps only we can solve this problem.
Great. Thank you, Vikas.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a
much.
lot.
Thank you, Raj.